Hello everyone and welcome to iQuanta. Today we have with us another IIM Ahmedabad convert, Nayana Nair from iQuanta. She has scored a 99.79 percentile in CAT 2023. So Nayana, first of all, very congratulations to you. How are you feeling?
Feels good, pretty much in shock since I got to know about the result. But yeah, pretty happy to have converted Ahmedabad and also to have received calls from the others. So we are yet to know the results of the others as well. So yeah, pretty shocked.
3 to 4 months and you'll be able to do it. So Nayana, apart from IIM Ahmedabad, what all interviews did you give?
So I applied only to the 6 old IIMs and also to FMS. So I gave all the interviews for Bangalore, Lucknow, Kozhikode, Indore, Calcutta, and I was about to give the interview for FMS, but then we got to know the results for Ahmedabad the day before. So yeah, these are the 6 interviews that I gave.
And which one did you find was the most grilling one?
I won't say any of my interviews were grilling. So most of the interview questions were around my profile and my work experience. But I found the Bangalore interview to be quite challenging. The main reason for that was because I was pretty nervous and there were 3 panelists during my interview. One was an economics professor, one was finance, and my background is sort of math and finance related. So they straight away started asking me modeling questions, some of which I could not even answer. So then I got very panicked and then I sort of blanked out throughout the whole interview, and then I could not perform at all even when they gave me very simple problems. So I think that was my worst interview experience, but the questions themselves were not very grilling. I think it's more about mindset. Yeah.
Okay, so out of all the interviews, which one of them, what question did you find the most difficult to answer?
So I think there were a lot of questions around my background. So when I say that I work in finance, they have a lot of expectations around what that involves. So my role is quite niche. It's around liquidity risk management. So when I say that I work in liquidity, they think that I'm familiar with reporting or I'm familiar with all types of models. So what your work experience would be, you need to be able to articulate that pretty well. Otherwise, they can go off a tangent. They can ask you so many questions related to that topic because they might be experts in that. So in my interview, they started asking me about time series modeling. So that is not something that I'm so familiar with. So then I had to say that I tried attempting it, but then I said, okay, I don't know. Maybe we should move to some other topic. So that way you're sort of, wasting some time that you have with the interviewer as well. So I think mostly interview, you should, be able to drive it, and at the same time, be clear on what you know, what you don't know. It's okay to totally say that, I'm not familiar with this topic, I don't know. They'll just pick something else. So yeah, I don't think there was a tough question as such, but it's more around the topics that you're familiar with versus what you're not familiar with.
Right. And was there a specific strategy for GDPI?
Yeah, so as opposed to CAT, for GDPI, you don't have a syllabus. It varies from person to person what they have done before. So first thing is, of course, your academics. That is something that you have to revise. So I had my bachelor's in mathematics and it's a very abstract subject. You don't have a lot of application based stuff. So mostly it was around theorems and things like that. So I revised a little bit on that. Second thing was work experience. So again, mine is more related to modeling side of things, and also I learned more about what is the application of the work that I do, how does it impact. So during one of my interviews, one of the questions I got was, if you are not at the firm, then what is the loss, right? What will happen if you are not at the firm? So then I had to really think about, okay, what am I actually handling? What is the impact? Somebody else would have to take over and so on. So mostly around work experience, you have to prepare a little bit on what you do and a little bit beyond that. So the firm that I work with, what is their impact, what is their scale, what are the products that they have, how do they generate revenue and so on. So I had to learn a little bit more about that. The next thing is news and current affairs. So I'm somebody who has not read a newspaper, before this whole GDPI process. And so then in those 2-3 months, going from not reading newspaper to reading newspaper almost every day and, learning about current affairs, knowing basic static GK, that is something that you absolutely have to do. And you can expect it in any of the interviews as well. In some of my interviews, there was no GK. Some of them, they asked a lot of GK questions, so it can vary. So that is another aspect. And then of course your own profile, your extracurriculars, what you've done in college, what you plan to do, why MBA and so on. So that would be the HR aspect. So these are the categories, and you have to sort of define things around you. So you don't have to, prepare things that are beyond the scope of your areas that you've worked in or areas that you have had some experience before in. So you have to think of a list of things that I have to study in academics. Maybe I don't have to study the proofs of theorems. I just need to learn what are the basics, what are the applications. Same thing with work experience, same thing with GK. You don't have to know things about, maybe US politics or things like that. What is happening around you? That's more than enough. So having a structured plan is very important for GDPI prep, and of course giving mocks. I think mock interviews really help me understand what are the areas that I really need to improve on versus what are the things that maybe I'm okay with, I don't need to focus on. So mocks really help you gain an understanding of that. And the last thing I would say is college-wise prep. So you also need to understand what is the history of this college, what is this known for, what are the courses I want to take, which professors are teaching it, what is their background and so on. So those are some other things that you have to prepare on for GDPI.
Right. So you mentioned being a BSc in maths. So can you elaborate a bit more on your profile and also your sectional percentiles in CAT?
Yeah, so regarding my profile, I did my bachelor's in mathematics from Lady Shri Ram College and I completed it in 2021. During that time, I did an internship with asset management company where I got a full-time offer. So I joined in 2021. I've been working there. I'm still working there now and it will be 3 years in July. So in terms of my marks, so my 10th I did CBSE, so I had a CGPA A grade, so that's 95%. Then in 12th I had 97.6 and in my undergrad I had 9.7 or so and work experience 2.5 years. So yeah, that's regarding my profile.
Nayana, can you also mention your sectional percentiles?
Yeah, sure. So my sectional percentile for VARC, it was 99.95. For LRDI, it was 90.2. And for QA, it was 98.6.
So this like signifies ki you don't have to be extremely good at all the 3 sections in order to ace the CAT or to score a 99.5 plus percentile or in order to convert IIM Ahmedabad, right?
Yeah.
So you can take, like, suppose you're good at one section, you are like extremely good at VARC. We must say that. So you are extremely good at VARC and you are like not too good or maybe just average you are performing in LRDI and quant, so you can still ace the exam, right? So how and when did you decide to do an MBA?
Yeah, so I always wanted to do a master's, but I wanted to do it after some work experience because I wanted to understand maths is sort of a generic degree. You need to know what sort of field you want to go into. You can go into hardcore research, you can go into finance, maybe you can do something completely different as well. So I wanted to decide for myself what that master's was going to be, and before that I wanted to get some work experience. So working actually really helped me understand, what is it that I want to pursue as a career. And I felt that I had gained some technical skills and I really wanted to learn a bit more in terms of subjects like HR and finance and so on, so that in the future when I become in a managerial role, that would really help me. So I decided that MBA seemed like the next logical step. And so I decided to, look for, CAT coaching and so on. So that's how I came across iQuanta. So I would say that 1 year into working, I decided that next thing I wanted to do was an MBA instead of, say, a master's in mathematics. But the decision to actually give CAT was much later on.
Great. So when exactly did you come across iQuanta?
So this was around, I would say, June 2022. So not 2022, 2023. Yeah, I think that around that time I decided that, I've been working for so long and it is sort of the high time that I give my CAT. So I did give an attempt in 2021 as well, but that was just to see like how I perform. Is this something that, I can do? Like I did not have a lot of confidence because I see so many people who are like from IIT who are getting 99.9%. I thought, okay, maybe I won't be able to do so well, because in the past when I gave competitive exams like JEE and all, I found it to be quite difficult and I did not do so well in those exams. So I was not sure if CAT is something that I would be able to do. So I just wrote the exam for the sake of my understanding in 2021 and I got a 95 percentile without preparation. And that was again because of VARC. Like I scored really well in that and the other 2 sections were around 70-80 percentile. So then I realized, okay, these are 2 sections that if I give the CAT again, I really need to work upon. So then I finally decided it's time to do an MBA. I have enough work experience. It makes sense to pursue it right now rather than delay it further.
Right.
So then I seriously started thinking about it again in June 2023. So that's how I came across the CAT coaching.
Okay, Nayana. So you mentioned that you were preparing for CAT along with a full-time job, right? So how difficult was it for you?
It was initially quite challenging because I did not know how to manage my time between work and studying, and I had not studied for a significant period of time since college, right? So it was very important for me to come up with a schedule, and I also decided that this was going to be my serious attempt and I want to be able to score well, and for that I need to give as much effort as I can. So I could not attend the live classes as in when they happened, but I tried my best to attend the application classes and watch the recorded videos of the live classes. And I made sure that I maintained a backlog of all the classes that took place, whatever I have completed and so on. So I had an Excel sheet where I tracked everything. So I had a overview of how much I have to do, what has been completed, and where I stand overall in terms of my performance and so on. So I made that tracker, and every day I would set a target. Okay, I need to finish these many backlog classes and 2 days classes. So I had a backlog in the beginning to start with.
Right.
So that backlog grooming kept on happening over time, and it got reduced. Then the sort of mock preparation was something that I had to do. So in terms of schedule, what I did was I used to wake up early. I used to go to office around 9 a.m. and from 9 to 12 I used to sit in office and study. Then I used to work from 12 to 5 in office. I'll come back. I would have meetings till late night, and then from 9 p.m. onwards I would study. So this was like an ideal day schedule, which I could not follow every day because it used to change according to my work projects and things like that. There were periods of time when I absolutely had no time to study, some weeks where I did not study at all. And then I took some break from work. I tried to study more during that period of time. And I had, in the month of November, when there was the CAT exam, I had a big project at work, and I also had my cousin's wedding. So there was a whole week where I did not study. And then there were some weeks where all I did was study. So it used to vary a lot, but on a good day, my schedule would be studying in the morning, going to work, and then studying in the evening.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, you maintain an Excel sheet for all the classes and everything. So at iQuanta, we have a very rigorous curriculum where we do daily practice sessions.
Yeah.
We do live classes and application sessions and assignments and everything, conceptual videos, everything is there. So did you used to cover all of them, or just parts of it? Were you able to do that?
Yeah, so there is a lot of material to begin with. So I never felt like I would be able to finish it. So I had to figure out what is it that I need to do. I used to focus on live classes, application classes, and the mocks. So those are the three things that I focused on. Apart from that, when I started, I watched the concept videos on the dashboard. But then after that, I could not go back to the dashboard practice. So every time after an application class, there would be messages that, okay, you can practice more in the dashboard. But that is something that I was not able to complete. Then towards the end, I focused more on mocks. So I gave around 10 to 12 mocks, full mocks, and then I gave a lot of sectional tests as well. So yeah, I could not finish the material, that is one thing, and I had to prioritize between whatever material that they gave, what worked for me and what I needed to complete. Also, I used to take down notes, so I had my own notebook where I would write down important points and formulae and keep on revisiting that constantly. So that really helped me stay up to date with topics that maybe I had studied some time back.
Right. And how much time did you exactly take to prepare for CAT?
So I started in June 2023 till November, so a couple of months. And in terms of daily time, again, used to vary. So on a good day, maybe I would spend 3 to 4 hours on a good day. And some weeks, as I mentioned, I took a couple of weeks from work off before the exam. So that time I was just studying. So I don't have an exact time, but this was the overall time period.
So Nayana, being a non-engineer, how difficult was it for you to prepare for CAT?
Honestly, I was pretty scared about the LRDI section because I've heard many people say that if you don't pick the right set, it can totally go wrong for you. So that section was the most difficult, and second most difficult was the QA section. So in terms of LRDI, actually I did mess up during the exam as well. I chose the wrong set, and towards the end somehow I had 3 options. I randomly picked one, and that seemed to fit the answer. and that's how I cracked like one set. That's all I did. With one set I got a 90%, 90.2 percentile. So LRDI was pretty bad to begin with, and in the end also it was the section that I scored the lowest in. It was quite hard to understand the formats. There were so many different formats of LRDI, and you have no idea what they are testing you on. It could be a puzzle, it could be a mixture of so many things. So first you have to learn all the different types. There are some topics that I even left which came in the exam. So yeah, I think that section, my strategy was not so good, and I had to work a lot to practice those sets, and especially solving under time pressure is a very important thing. So that is something that you should not delay at all. Even when you do your practice, make sure that you do it under a timer, because that stress is what makes that section very difficult. In terms of QA, I think there might be a lot to cover, but then once you know the basics, then it's just about practice. So QA is a section that even if you're really low to begin with, I think I was around 80 percentile in my first attempt. So I had to improve a lot in that section. So learning the concepts and a lot of practice would be sufficient for QA. But LRDI is something that even after a lot of practice can be quite difficult if you're not able to, pick the right set or manage your, time or manage your mental state at that during the exam. So I remember during my exam, I thought, the LRDI section is completely gone. I'm not going to be able to score well. But then I had to quickly switch out of that mindset, because then you have another section. Yeah. So I said, it's fine. Even if this is gone, I'll try to score. The only section I have left now is QA, and I have to score really well in that. So it's important to manage your time during the exam. And there can be so many situations during the exam that can distract you. For example, in my case, somebody who was sitting next to me was humming constantly, and it was super distracting. But then I had to just focus on my paper. So I think focus and managing time is something that's really important during your daily practice as well as during the exam. So yeah, I mean, that's my feedback on those two sections.
Yeah, definitely. So how many mocks did you take while your preparation?
I think full mocks I must have taken around 10 to 12, and I did take a lot of sectional mocks. That did help, because what would happen during the mocks is that my final score would be good because of the VARC section, and then I would feel complacent that okay, I don't need to work so much on LRDI or QA. But then it's important to realize that you have sectional cutoffs also, so you have to clear those. So then the sectional mocks for LRDI and QA really helped, and there I could see some improvement. I could see where I'm going wrong, what strategy was working. And the mocks really give you a place to experiment as well. So, people have strategies, try one set and see how much you score, try 2 sets, try 3 sets, maybe pick and choose from different topics that you're comfortable with. So mocks are a good place to experiment with all of that and also see where you stand. So I think the sectional mocks are pretty good in that aspect, and full mocks also I found it to be quite good, because you have to sit for 3 hours, you have to manage your time and you have to manage your mental state in those 3 hours between the sections as well. So yeah, I think the mocks are quite useful.
Definitely. And what was the strategy that you took while analyzing the mocks?
Yeah, so while analyzing the mocks, obviously, there's all this color coding that tells you where you went wrong, what was the mistake, and then helps you highlight, was it a silly mistake, was it a calculation mistake, and so on. So I think in QA, I used to make a lot of silly mistakes. So I used to label them as silly mistakes where I could have easily scored. And then some questions where, I did not know the concept. So towards the end, it's very hard to learn a new concept. So I would just leave those and try to focus on improving the areas where I can easily score, or I'm losing out because of calculation mistake or something like that. In terms of LRDI, I'll try to understand. So basically you have multiple sets, and if you're making mistakes within the set, that is something that you can work on rather than trying to attempt a set that you're not so familiar with. So there I used to try and see, okay, if this is a type of question, this is a different type of question that can be asked in the same set that I'm familiar with. So those things I used to see as quick wins, what are things that I can easily accomplish, and what are things that maybe, it's too late for me to start learning something new. So I think you have to revise your strategy at different periods of time. When you start out, you have to try and learn as much, and start with a little bit of, it'll be like 80% learning, 20% practice, and then slowly that'll move towards 80% practice, 20% learning, or almost like 10% learning.
So Nayana, you mentioned that you've always been good with VARC, right? So what strategy did you adopt with DILR and Quant in order to push that 99 percentile score?
Yeah, so I'll just quickly cover on the VARC what I did to maintain that score. So in my first attempt, I think I got somewhere in the 97 percentile. So from 97 to 99, also it takes a lot of effort to maintain that. So what I did was, there was a lot of first of all is reading a lot and genuinely being interested in the topic that you read. I think that is the first step. So of course you cannot cultivate a habit of reading suddenly just for the exam, but then whatever you read, try to understand it and try to genuinely be interested in what the author is trying to say. At the same time, you also need to read from very different topics as well. So there were a couple of sites that the faculty provided. One was Aeon. So they have a lot of essays, and those essays are generally quite difficult and they cover a lot of topics as well. But even spending just 2 to 3 minutes on that website reading, it really helps you first of all build your knowledge and at the same time improve your reading comprehension abilities as well. So I did a few things like that helped me maintain it, and also attending the classes and doing some practice. Now with respect to LRDI and QA, so those are the sections that I needed to learn from the conceptual level as well. So for LRDI, I used to attend all the live classes and application classes, and I used to do whatever practice was being done. And towards the end, there were some sets like the LRDI 70 and QA 250. So those were really helpful because it sort of summarized, all the important questions from all the important topics. And just doing that itself, refreshed your concepts and made you revise formula, and also made sure that you were prepared for the exam. And so I think firstly was getting that conceptual clarity, which you'll get from the live classes and attending application classes, and then doing some self-practice. Towards the end, the mocks were also very useful. So I took some sectional mocks and full-length mocks. So those really helped me understand, what are the concepts that I'm good at, that I don't need to spend more time on, and what are the concepts where I'm making a lot of silly mistakes, that those are, small wins. So if I don't make silly mistakes, I can easily get those marks and make sure I don't get negative marks as well. So improving your accuracy, making sure you don't make silly mistakes, those are things that we really need to take more seriously if we want to improve our score. So concepts can help you to a certain extent, but these are things that we have to take into consideration when we solve LRDI and QA sets.
Right. So, like whenever you used to get doubts, meanwhile preparing and while you were practicing, so what all methods did you adopt in order to solve that?
Yeah, so in terms of doubts, I think the first of all, the live classes were pretty useful because it was all solved in the class itself, and the faculty used to post after as well, as a homework question, and used to reply to that. In terms of application classes, I think whenever I used to have a doubt, mostly it gets resolved in the comment section itself, or the faculty would respond, or some people used to help each other. So I think that community was there. I never felt like I didn't have support or I didn't receive help when I needed it. And I think the solutions that were there in the mock test, those were also pretty detailed. So I never felt the need to reach out. In fact, when I read the solution, I could understand it where I went wrong. Or they used to give multiple methods of solving as well, some of which were lengthy that we would traditionally solve, and some faster methods. So those are actually very helpful in terms of saving time during the exam and having those strategies. So whenever I had doubts, I think mostly it used to get resolved in the comment section or by just reading the solution.
Right. And just in case you had there are a lot of distractions with social media and Netflix and all of that. So there are a lot of distractions, right? So how do you manage that? And what kind of distractions did you mainly face?
Yeah, I think to some extent distractions are good because we get so absorbed in, work or study that we don't take time out for ourselves. But we also need to make sure that the distraction is in a healthy way. So I never used to feel like I needed to study all the time because it used to feel very counterproductive that after a point my productivity was decreasing, I'm not focusing enough, and it was not adding value. So I used to do some exercise, some form of yoga or something like that used to make sure that I have a sort of a balanced life. It's not like I'm just studying or I'm just working. And at the same time, keeping in touch with your friends and family, that is also a big moral support and support system, because many a times you doubt yourself and you feel like I can't do this is too hard. So many people are getting 99.9, will I be able to do that? Is this a wasted attempt, and so on. So at that time it's very important to keep people who are like your well-wishers, who want the best for you. So I had very supportive friends, very supportive family. So I used to reach out to them whenever I used to feel like, I can't do this or this is too hard. So in terms of distractions, of course, there are so many distractions. There's all this social media, there's fun things to do all the time. You can always go out and have a good time. It's okay to do that once in a month or so. And having, spending some time on social media is also not so bad, but it should not, become like a mindless activity that you're doing. So I used to have these, checks in my head that, okay, this is getting too much, I should switch and go back to studying. So having that internal discipline and self-discipline is really important. And that is something that you will have when you're very serious about your goals. So it is something that will come, as an intrinsic motivation. You don't need somebody to tell you that don't do this, don't do that. So self-discipline is of course very important, and it becomes even more important when you have like some specific goal to achieve. So I think I tried my best to do that. But of course, there were periods of time where I had to, I could not study at all. Like I said, I had my cousin's wedding. So there was no scope for me to study. I was traveling, I was attending a wedding and so on. But then I made sure that the next week and the week before that, I was just studying. So we have to sort of balance it out when you have multiple things to do. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So that is one of the key to stay dedicated towards and consistent as well. Right. So, you were an iQuanta CAT course student, so you must have taken the mocks as well.
Yeah.
So, what was your favorite feature in the iCAT mocks?
I think the mocks themselves were quite a good simulation of the actual exam. So when I gave the exam, it felt like I was giving another mock. So the closeness to the actual exam was a very good aspect. Second thing was that the analysis that they used to provide, that was also pretty detailed. Like I used to know where I'm going wrong, which question, what type of mistake I was making, whether it was a silly mistake, calculation mistake, so on. And I also got to know what my expected percentile would be, what my expected rank would be. So that really helped me understand where I stand. So that's how I got to know that even if I just solve 2 sets correctly in LRDI, that's more than enough. I don't have to solve all of the sets. Even for QA, accuracy is more important than the number of questions you solve.
Yeah.
In terms of VARC, you have to solve as much as you can, and that is one section where you can complete the paper. You will have enough time to go through it as well. So these things become more clear when you take the mocks, and when the mocks are very close to the actual exam, that also becomes a big plus point. I could also see analysis through all the mocks that I have taken. At what point did I go down? Was it because I was not focusing enough? Was it because I had to learn some new concept? So that sort of self-analysis became a lot more easier with the iQuanta mocks that I took.
Enough about studies now. Let's talk about your extracurriculars. What all things are you interested in, your hobbies?
So recently I've not had a lot of hobbies. So I do yoga as a form of exercise. So that is something that really calms me down. It's something that I've done from my school and picked it up during college and now as well. So that is something that I do in my free time. In terms of extracurriculars, I actually did participate in quite a few societies during my college time. So that was the time where I actually explored a lot of extracurriculars. For example, there was this social entrepreneurship organization that I was involved in, and I used to participate in a few societies as well, like debating society and so on. I used to do a lot of writing as well. So I think writing is something that I've carried forward from my school to college and even today. So yeah, I mean, as of now, I don't really have a lot of time for extracurriculars, but I try to do something that is creative, something that is good for your physical and mental health. So in terms of creative things I do, I recently found this website which is called The Ordinary Knit, where they do like DIY crochet kits. So I made like a crochet turtle. So that is something that I did.
That is nice.
Yeah, I think it makes you feel like, oh, the crochet is a completely new skill that you just pick up and suddenly there's a turtle. So it just shows that you just have to stay at something new. It's very hard to learn something new, but if you stay at it, you can see the results for yourself. In terms of keeping yourself mentally at peace and also physically healthy, it's important to do some sort of exercise. I've never been the sports person, I've never been athletic, but yoga was something that really helped me improve and stay calm. I still did yoga during my CAT prep, so I don't think you need to compromise one thing for the other, right? So yeah, I think that's about my extracurriculars.
Yeah, and the last question from my side would be some 3 things you want to say to all the CAT aspirants who are currently watching this video.
Yeah, so from my experience, I would say first thing is know your strengths and know your weaknesses. Continue to improve on your strengths and make sure that you fix your weakness before the exam. Like, don't keep it, make sure that you're aware of where you're going wrong. So I think awareness and self-awareness and knowing where to improve is very important. Second thing is be calm and don't take the stress personally. So there are many times where you feel like you have a lot of doubt and you feel like maybe I can't do this. I felt that at every point. I felt that during the exam, I felt that after the exam, I felt it before my preparation for the interviews. Even after I got my score, I was like, okay, now we have the interviews. I have not read a single newspaper. I don't know any current affairs. How am I going to give the interviews? So you have these moments of doubt at every point, and it's very important for you to overcome them and to have that belief in yourself. So I think I struggle to do that even today. So as I said, it's important to have a good support system, and it's important to be kind to yourself as well. So that's the second thing. Try to be calm and don't take too much stress. And the third thing that I would say is just trust the process. Like, many times you feel like I'm putting in all of this effort, I'm not getting any results. Right? Even when you're going through your preparation, it takes a lot of time before you actually see any results. So don't we have this tendency to expect results immediately because you're so used to instant gratification and so on. But when it comes to an exam, you don't get to see that immediately. You really have to put in the effort. You'll go through highs and lows, and it takes time. So be patient and just trust the process. Even when I was going through the coaching, many a times you will have that doubt, okay, maybe should I take some other coaching, maybe should I do some extra material, maybe should I sign up for 10 other courses.
Right.
But just focus on one thing and continue with that, and trust the faculty, trust the process, and trust the way that they're doing things. Maybe somebody does it a bit differently, but that's okay. If you're trying something new, you have to give it time. So I think these are the three things that I would say, and all the best to everyone appearing for 2024.
So, Nayana, how was your IIM Ahmedabad interview experience? What were the initial feelings like when you entered the interview room?
Yeah, so about my IMA interview experience, it's actually quite an interesting story because I had my interview on a Sunday, and on Friday I felt quite sick. I felt so sick that I had to get admitted to a hospital, and I had to have drips injected to me because I could not consume solid food. So when I was admitted, I was like, okay, I am not going for the interview. There is no way I can go for the interview. I'm extremely sick, and I was admitted to the hospital, and the doctors were trying to give me all sorts of medicine so that I can go for the interview. I had my friend with me, and because he kept on telling me that you're not going to get this opportunity again, just go for it. Even if you don't say anything, like, there is a slight chance that you might get in if you go for the interview, but if you don't go for the interview, it's not going to happen. So I did not prepare anything. I just, whatever preparation I had done before, that was all. I didn't prepare anything extra. I just read a bit about the college, and I took a leave from the hospital for a few hours. I went, this is in Gurgaon, I went all the way to Dwarka where my interview was. I had the needle and everything in my hand already stuck, and so the interviewers could see that, something is wrong with this person. I was the first in my panel, thankfully, so it got done pretty quickly. I remember the writing topic was actually quite simple, but I could not think so much that I, did a pretty shabby job, I would say. During the interview, they started asking me, and I told them that have to go back to the hospital, get readmitted, and so on. Thankfully, I didn't get panelists who were from my sort of background. They were professors in a different field, so they didn't ask me too many technical questions. It was more about they asked me a little bit about my work. Then they gave me a situational question about something that the Delhi government was doing, co-ed school versus non-co-ed school. What are the positives, what are the negatives? Then some questions around maths, who's your favorite mathematician, and so on. So it was conversational. And there were things that I did not know. They asked me to elaborate on the Fields Medal. So I had very little knowledge about that. In hindsight, I should have known, given that I'm a maths graduate. So yeah, so I did not feel like I would get the interview, although they did give me a chocolate. I thought it was just sympathy because I'm coming from the hospital. But yeah, I didn't think I would get through given my condition at the time. But somehow it happened, and I'm still shocked that they decided to convert me to the college. So yeah, that was my experience. But I think it just shows that you have to take some risks, and you have to be perseverant in even when you're going through some challenges. And I don't think I would have gone for the interview if it wasn't for my friend pushing me to go and give it a shot. Right, so I think it's important to have a very good support system as well. So that was my experience.
Naina, thank you so much for coming here, for your time, for giving this interview, and all the best to you for IMA.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and for just we have a little gesture. So this is for you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming here.
Thank you.
All the best.
Thank you so much.